welcome to Black History Month Daily. My name is Derek Chapman, and let me ask you a question. Did you know that one of the first people to set foot and discover the North Pole was a Black American? And did you know that this Black American is related to a very famous actress today? Well, we're going to talk about Matthew Alexander Henson. Matthew Alexander Henson was actually related to the actress Taraji B. Henson. And he was one of the first people to set foot on the North Pole. Matthew Henson was born in Maryland in 1886. His parents died when he was very young. So at the age of 10, Matthew Henson attended a speech given by Frederick Douglass. And within that speech, Frederick Douglass inspired him. He gave a message of pursuing your dreams, increasing your education, and fighting racial inequality in America. Henson would end up, after hearing the speech, he would end up leaving school and pursuing his dreams of one day sailing the seas. So he ended up becoming a cabin boy on the Katie Holmes, which was a ship ran by Captain Childs. So Matthew would end up traveling and seeing the world. He traveled to Africa. He saw Russia, Japan, China. And on that ship, Captain Childs ended up teaching him not only about navigation, he also taught him how to read and write. So from there, unfortunately, Captain Henson ended up dying. So Matthew ended up returning back to Washington. But that's where fate kicks in. He ended up getting a job at a department store and he met another person. And this person was critical in his life. He ended up meeting Robert Peary. Now, Peary, he was actually an explorer himself. So it was, like I said, divine timing that they met each other. Peary ended up speaking to Matthew and they hit it off. And he realized that Matthew had a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. So he ended up hiring him on the spot. And from there, they had many expeditions, a lot of travel. They ended up traveling to Nicaragua as well as Greenland. And in the early 1900s is when they decided they wanted to tackle and discover the North Pole. So many failed attempts. There ended up being 8 attempts to reach the North Pole. They were not successful. But in 1909, it was they had 24 men, they had 103 dogs, and they trekked out and they were going to discover and find the North Pole. Most of the men ended up turning back, but it was only Pearson and it was Henson and 4 other crew members who discovered the North Pole. And Henson was actually the first one to set his literal foot on the North Pole. So from there, in 1912, Henson ended up publishing a book called A Negro Explorer at the North Pole. He had no recognition, but in 1937, he was inducted and became the first African American member of the Explorers Club. In 1948, he was welcomed at the White House by President Truman, as well as President Eisenhower. In 2000, after his death, he was given the Hubble Medal by the National Geographic Society. And also a really other cool one is there's a lunar crater that's actually named after him. I want to thank you for taking this ride for me, and make sure you tune in tomorrow when Kevin will be speaking of and introducing us to Black Wall Street. And always remember, Black history is American history. Thank you.